3, 4.
Instant karma is the result of all of our actions. Every action that we make has a consequence. What we put out to others comes back to us, and this is called the ripple effect. We stand for a positive reflection of self and others. We give respect, we honor traditions and cultures, and we share that knowledge. What we as humanity do as one is up to us, and it's time to make that choice. In an era where truth is buried like a lost treasure and history is being rewritten, we believe now is that time to correct this. See, truth is like the sun, and eventually that light comes out. And here on Instant Karma, we feel it is our purpose that we all shine on together as one. Thank you for joining Instant Karma Show. I'm your host, Valerie Clark. Today's guest is Geo Brawn. Geo Brawn IV is the creator of the Untold Chronicles, a series of graphic novels that will forever change how mortals view their world. Born in Los Angeles and coming of age in the city of angels and demons, Geo embraced the adventure and fantasy of comic books. His creativity was fueled, and soon his own stories and characters began to form. His passion to draw and write led him to the Pasadena Art Center College of Design and later to the study of graphic art. Geo brought his first character, Cherry Bomb, to the page in 2002. Since then, she has taken him to the universe of stories that span the oceans of time and tell a love that knows no bounds. They began with Everdance, continue to Blood Rites, and climax in the Blood of Eden. Geo Brawn IV continues to live in Southern California, where his nights are spent drawing and writing the second trilogy of the Untold Chronicles. Without further ado, here's Geo. Thank you for joining me, Geo.
Hi, Valerie. Thanks for having me on.
What makes your work unique, and what influences did you draw from the creation of your characters?
Well, I love the idea of mixing history and mythology together, and then science really was the key component I thought was missing in my stories. When you add science in, science is in many cases an absolute. You know, formulas are what they are, and even writing a story has a formula. So it was really important to me to put all these factors together and make the stories happen, because it makes them that much more real to not only me as I'm doing them, but also to the reader.
That sounds great. How do science and physics play a role in your fictional universe?
For a long time, like I said, there was a missing component in my stories, at least that I felt. And mythology and history did play a huge part in what I do. Mixing them together was really kind of interesting, because I took a lot of histories that basically we only know a little about, and I just added to them. I kind of created my own mythology based on what is already known. The idea of throwing science into the mix was really, for me, it was the missing piece of the puzzle. And when I started doing so, it basically helps explain my characters, what they are, different types of creatures. I mean, everything from vampires to angels to demons. All of which gets explained in a scientific aspect as well as a mythological aspect as well. It's a lot of fun to put it all together and make it into one big storyline, because I think that it really brings the reader into the story that much more.
Absolutely. Do you draw inspiration from actual history or mythology?
I do. As far as everything that I do with the Chronicles, I go all the way through ancient Hebrew. With some of my characters. The character of Lilith came from ancient Hebrew text. She is considered a demon, but in modern day, the fun part for me was, how would that character evolve? What would happen to that character? And that's where the storyline of her character comes into light. We bring in the aspect of modern day. The reader basically gets to see this character evolve and become start off as almost a victim in the beginning to this tyrannical monster, and then eventually evolve from that into this rock star type person in modern day. So it really kind of comes home that all these factors of history and mythology blend really, really nice together. And then you throw in the science factor of what she really is, kind of a hybrid between humanity and angelic kind, you know. She really kind of bridges that gap as far as what she was almost a mutant in a sense, when she fell to Earth, when she was kicked out of Eden. In my storylines, and this is actually a part of mythology, is that she was Adam's first wife. And that was I thought that was a really great idea and a concept. What do you do with a character like that? What happens to a character like that? So the idea of bringing her into the storyline and making her a big part of it was really interesting to me. Seeing that character evolve from something that was evil or monstrous into something that was very poetic, in her own way, very rock star-ish. I mean, what do you do when the biggest fear of your world is being bored?
Yeah.
So that was really a kind of a big factor. And other characters as well, the character of Gabriel, the character of Michael, the character of Luke in my stories was actually Lucifer. All these characters have their own mythologies, their own mythoses. And the idea of throwing that mythos in and making it a little something different, giving it some spice, was big for me. It was like, this is where I could go with this. I can go anywhere. And that's how these characters kind of evolved. And one of the biggest things that really drive me is when someone, a fan or anybody, talks about these characters as if they're real. I mean, there's so much behind their history. They've read the stories. They understand these characters. And they ask, as if the person was real. So what's going on with Kate these days, or what's going on with this character? It's a lot of fun. I really enjoy it.
So do you think applying actual science and physics to the supernatural elements of your stories makes them more believable in your readers' minds?
Oh, absolutely. I think it really does bring home the factor of these characters have biology. These characters have, a physical understanding in this world, in this environment. Angels can transport themselves between planes. Right. The idea of them being able to actually leave this environment, go into another environment that is just a different plane of existence, and make it, throughout time and space. I mean, and it's just like matter of fact. It's like we breathe. We breathe in and out automatically, even when we sleep. These characters transport themselves from one existence to another, and it doesn't even, they don't even flinch. So I think that's really kind of a fun aspect of who they are. Even the vampires in my stories, they have a history, they have a mythos. They come from someplace that is from a science-based. Angels and Lilith, who's be considered a succubus or a demon. They basically, if you combine them together, the hybrid that comes out of that would be vampires in my stories. So, that's kind of the idea. You get the feeling of who Lilith is and what she's created. She created 33 vampires in her lifetime. And then, over the course of the later years, decided that they needed to be stopped. So she starts actually wiping them out herself. Killing her own children in existence. I mean, that's because she knows she can. She knows she can stop them. She's higher up on the food chain, if you will. And all these factors, like I said, the scientific elements behind them and what makes them tick really kind of became very important in my stories. It was a focus point,
Right. So what is the general process of combining all of these elements into a story as a whole?
Well, first and foremost, you got to kind of get an idea of the subject itself. So where do you want to take it? Now, the first book itself, Everdance, was really kind of important to me because I really hadn't seen a comic book, and I'd done some pretty extensive research in my life. I've been a comic book fan since I was a little kid, and I never saw a book where basically the main character starts off as not a bad guy, but someone who's a victim.
Right.
In her own sense. She's taken care of. I mean, she's a victim in the sense that she is not strong. She has no real ability. She doesn't even live as a vampire. She lives very much like a human being. She goes to the store. She does her taxes. She lives as a children's book writer.
In most comic books, the female superheroes are just spin-offs of the big male superheroes.
Exactly. You have Batgirl, you have Batwoman, you have Supergirl. Yeah, exactly. You have, all these characters that are basically spin-offs, the female archetype of the male character.
Exactly.
And in this book, I wanted an anti-hero almost. I wanted somebody who wasn't just your typical, I'm going to save the day. She has a need. Her husband is killed. and she has no way to survive because she was living off of him for blood. And she's a vampire. He made her. He was her sire. So to make her go into a world where really she doesn't have any real business as far as she's concerned, all of a sudden now she has to really survive on her own and make it her world. You know, she has to learn how to kill if she's going to survive. Initially, she was going to kill herself because she couldn't take a life. You know, she's it's just not in her. She's scared of spiders. So to have her take a life was just not a possibility. And then all of a sudden it hit her. What if I kill people who are already bad, who are unredeemable, who refuse to redeem themselves, you know? She can read minds as a vampire, so she knows what's in a person's mind. She can feel what's in them. And she can hunt them and make them her victims, if you will. So that's really where the story came from. And the idea of a character who is not a good guy, but not a bad person either. You kind of, they're more interesting to read about. So that was a big factor in her character. And I wanted to see stuff that I didn't see otherwise. I wanted to see characters who were strong female characters, which was really big for me. I mean, because you see all these, I'm a strong, you see a male character and they have muscles upon muscles and, you know, they can fly and they can zap lasers from their eyes, and that's great. But I wanted to see a female character that didn't have all the gimmicks that you normally see out there, that were just a person in a bad situation. That's where I went with that first story. And then the second story, even, my vampires, I don't really think are immortal, ridiculously strong characters that, you know, are unfoilable. I mean, I really want to see something different than what was already out there. It was important for me. And vampires I've always loved. So that's where I really wanted to drive home the story of Everdance, and then eventually Blood Rights. Characters that get to experience their own self-worth, their own struggles, and still come up on top.
So tell me about Monster Palooza and how you are going to be involved, and also about your commission work that you do.
The Monster Palooza event is in Burbank, California, and it is one of the coolest events around. I really enjoy doing that every year. This year we'll have a actual booth at the event, and I love it. It's absolutely amazing. If you've ever seen a horror movie or a fantasy movie or a music video, I mean, you'll see pretty much anything and everything you can imagine there. They have an entire museum dedicated to all the monsters and mayhem from various stories and movies. It's really fun to be there. You'd be amazed what you could see, and they actually have the stars from these movies. And it's just a lot of fun. It's a great experience. If you're ever a fan of horror movies, you'll see the creators who make these huge statues of characters that you grow up watching, as well as modern day characters. I mean, it's amazing to see. Even the fans get into it. I mean, they'll dress all up as their favorite horror characters and everything. It's quite fascinating. And I do a lot of commission work at my booth. If you are there, you'll see me drawing pretty much what anybody wants. I can draw anything that your heart desires. So you want to be Doctor Who, I can draw you as Doctor Who. You want to be a werewolf, I can draw you as a werewolf, or a vampire. Zombies are very popular these days, so I get a lot of requests for zombies. So yeah, I do a lot of commission work at the event itself, as well as otherwise. That's a big part of what I do, is I love bringing people's concepts to life. So
yeah, you've actually done 2 of me. And I remember the first one you did, it was your favorite season, which is autumn, and it was called Autumn Leaves. We loved that. It was very well received. And then I said, Geo, come on, stop making me the victim here. So you made another one, Valerie the Wicked, which I loved.
Yes. You know what? You became a very, very, very amazing muse, if you will. You have a unique look to you, and I'll be honest, I am a fan of redheads. So, I mean, I couldn't go wrong. And I really enjoyed both of those, commissions. It was awesome. It was a lot of fun.
Thank you. And well, you're a fan of redheads because Cherry Bomb, I mean, goodness, she's beautiful.
Thank you. Yeah, she's quite a trip. The Cherry Bomb is a 17-year-old vampire. I mean, you can't go wrong with that. It's a lot of fun to have. She's quirky. She's entertaining. She is very much her own person. And it's fun to bring a character like that to life in a whole mythological realm.
So where can anyone find your work?
Well, I have a website. It's geobrawn.com, GeoBrawn.com.
Mm-hmm.
You'll see the Untold Chronicles there. You'll see the characters of those stories, and you can read more about me if you like. Also, too, I have Facebook and Twitter. You can just go ahead and look up either on those, Geo Brawn, and you'll find me.
All right, Geo, I appreciate so much you being on Instant Karma Show with me. Thank you so much.
Oh, you're very welcome. Thank you for having me on, and it's great getting the information out there about all that I do. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much. I wish you the best on everything, and especially at Monsterpalooza. Let me know how that goes.
Will do. Thank you.
You're welcome. That was creator of the Untold Chronicles, Geo Brawn IV. Thank you for listening to Instant Karma Show. I'm Valerie Clark, wishing you light and love.